Thank you all for joining us today for the Voter Education and Outreach Advisory Committee. My name is Yahaira Ortega, and I'm here with Thrive Alliance. And I'm here with Diane Leeds, who is my co-chair for the VEOAC.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. As Yahaira said, I'm Diane Leeds, with co-chair of the VEOAC, as well as a member of San Francisco Peninsula People Power. And for today's question, as you go around introducing yourself, we'll strictly the folks here in the room, and then we'll go to folks on Zoom. The question for today is, what's your favorite spring activity? So my favorite spring activity is working out in my garden. So pass it on to Angie. Yeah, introduce yourself and what's your favorite spring activity?
Yeah, so my name's Angie Bautista, and I work for Bellhaven Action. And my favorite spring activity is kind of just going out for runs instead of like being cold. So just feeling the sun.
My name is Betsy Colby. I'm with League of Women Voters, South San Mateo County. And I'm also a gardener, so I'm out there weeding right now.
Good for you.
It's very therapeutic.
I think you missed the,
Oh, sorry.
it's actually your turn for the.
Hi, so introduce yourself.
Okay.
And then what's your
Great.
favorite spring activity?
My name is Nicole Nash, and I am the brand spanking new Programs and Operations Manager at Thrive Alliance. I just started yesterday virtually, so today is my first like live and in person a chance. Favorite spring activity. So we relocated here from North Carolina, and when my children were little, and I still drag them, they're 14 and 12, but I still drag them. We always do this goat cuddling thing in the spring when baby goats are born, and it's my most joyful thing that happens in the spring. So you should cuddle goats because it's super fun.
My name is Sarah O'Brien. I'm from the elections office, and spring activity. Well, my favorite year-round activity is walking. I have to walk my dog 10,000 steps a day we go for. And spring is nice, so it's not too hot except for today and tomorrow. You can introduce yourself and say a spring thing you'd like to do.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sarah. I'm Beth Von Emster, she, her pronouns with ACLU North Peninsula chapter, along with my colleague Sue here. And I share your passion year round for walking, hiking. It's especially lovely with the wildflowers out right now.
Good morning, I'm Sue Carmichael. I'm volunteer with the North Peninsula chapter of the ACLU. Big shout out to my colleague virtually chowning. Poplar is there this morning.
Hi, Sue.
Hi. My favorite activity at this time is pulling the weeds. Somehow it's become daunting this year. Thank you, and I'll pass it on.
My name is Joanne. I'm with Fuente, she, her, ella. My favorite spring activity is bike riding.
Hi, my name is Glenna Olson. I'm with the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area. And I guess, I don't know if it's my favorite, but my springtime ritual is to pretend this is the year I start to do gardening. What is this year I'm gonna do? And then inevitably it's my wife who likes gardening. I'm not taking over whatever project.
I'm Eric Sapp. I work at Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. My favorite springtime activity is just walking around and looking at the flowers. I think the California poppies seem unusually large this year. Maybe it's the rain or maybe it's my imagination.
Pam Jones, Bellhaven Empowered, and my spring activity really is reorganizing, cleaning, and being in the sun.
That's a good one, Pam.
So you just need your spring activity.
Yes, of course. And just to keep everyone posted, there's people joining us virtually and people in person. Please speak as loudly, as clearly as you can so that the other people can hear you. And my spring activity is just similar to Pam. I like to go through everything and reorganize and clean and deep clean that brings me sanity, so that's what I look forward to on my weekends. To just reorganizing my life, so I feel better throughout the week. And I want to ask folks on Zoom, if you're willing and want to introduce yourself, please be on camera or come off mute as you like, and you can popcorn it off to someone else who's on camera. Okay, Margie, why don't you kick us off?
Hi, this is Margie Gaynor from the League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo County. I live on the coast, so I'm gonna get a shout out to the goats down at Harley Farms, because they are pretty cute to go check out. I do like, well, my husband's English, so he does most of the gardening, and we have very different ideas of what whacking things back in the spring looks like, so I leave it to him, so in the interest of marital harmony. And I will popcorn it to Carmen Torres.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'm Carmen from Siren Immigrant Rights. I'm from San Jose. And my favorite spring activity, you've all said it, but I love to walk and I love to check off the flowers this time of the year. And I'm trying to see who to popcorn it to. I don't see anybody else.
Carmen, you can popcorn it. I see Cassandra.
Okay, I'll popcorn it to Cassandra.
Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Cassandra. I work for Nuestra Casa here in East Palo Alto, and my favorite spring activity is going on walks in the afternoons with my dog. And I'll popcorn it over to Angie.
Good morning. My name is Angie Cavazos. I'm with Health Policy and Planning in San Mateo County. And one of my favorite activities is, like most of you, walking and spending time outside. I will pass it on to Melissa.
Hi, my internet connection at home is terrible, so I'm gonna leave the camera off, but I'm Melissa Michelson. I'm the Dean of Arts and Sciences at Menlo College. And my favorite spring activity is all the gorgeous flowers in my yard. There's purple petals everywhere. It's like a magical garden. Who's left?
We can pass it on to Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hello, hi. And as a lot of you said, there's a couple of my hiking friends and walking friends in there. My favorite spring activity is definitely getting outside with my pup and wildflowers. And my passion and my reason for being here is just voter registration. It's just, I cannot say enough of working with various organizations on that. So I'm new here to you guys. Hi, how are you? And thank you. And I don't know if there's someone else to pass it on to there. Is there an Anna, do I see, or who is that?
You can pass it to Chantel or Anna Lee.
Okay, yeah, Anna Lee, that's what I see.
Hi everyone. Sorry I can't make it in person. Kids are out of school, so it makes things very hard for parents. I've been part of this before. I really enjoy promoting voter outreach in San Mateo, Santa Clara County, especially in Latinx communities. I wear two hats. One is Casa Círculo Cultural, and the other one is Peninsula 360 Press.
Thank you, Anna. For those coming in, we're asking to introduce yourself and what is your favorite spring activity. Jim, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us your spring activity?
Great. Good morning, everybody. Jim Irizarry here. And my favorite activity in the spring is fishing, trout fishing. For those of you who like to fish, San Pablo Reservoir is now catching 5-pound trout. And you have also a lot of good bass fishing along the shore. And so that's my passion. I take my grandkids and we go fishing.
Nice. Thank you, Jim. Chantel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Chantal Gonzalez, an election specialist supervisor with San Mateo County. And my favorite spring activity is attending the concerts in the park in San Francisco.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. Anybody else that would like to introduce themselves, just come off mute. I'm not calling on people that are not on camera. If
Sure. Good morning. This is Chowning Poplar here. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And as Sue mentioned, I'm a volunteer with Sue and Beth at the North Peninsula chapter of the ACLU. And one of the things I'm enjoying right now is watching all the birds who are so active right now, making their nests. And it's, everything's coming back to life. And I really enjoy that in the spring. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay. Last chance, last call. Okay, we're moving on.
All right, so the next thing on the agenda is announcements, and I'll pass it first to Yahira.
Yeah, so I'd like to just go over the agenda real quick, the introductions and announcements. Then we'll hear from the elections division, and then I'll give a March primary recap on Thrive's End, and we'll talk about summer plans. Woohoo! On my end, you can look forward to joining us at the HR Learning Series, the Creative and Equitable Recruitment. If you are interested in this particular program, go to thrivealliance.org if you'd like to join us tomorrow here in person at CVI in Redwood City. All right, the next program that we have on deck is the Nonprofit Advocacy Series. It's hosting our 5th program. It's called Coalition Catalyst, Igniting Impactful Collaboration. So most of you here already work in coalitions and may have some experience, but if you're just new to a coalition space and want to learn more about different types of coalitions, join us virtually on Tuesday, April 30th from 10:30 to 12 to hear from these amazing leaders. All right, so we did our introductions and I will stop sharing now. Pass it over to Diane. Oh, yes, of course. Just for everyone's knowledge, Petra is no longer with us, so if you have any questions regarding the VEOAC or any better engagement process or initiatives, contact me and Diane, and we are your people now.
And she's still around, just not at Thrive anymore. I just wanted to take a moment to remember a longtime member of the VEOAC, Mike Levinson. He passed away at the end of February. He basically was a member of the VEOAC from the very beginning. So, and he participated when we were doing studies on the voter choice rollout in San Mateo County. He was a very important member of that. He was also an appointed member of the Voter Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I know Sarah knows him from that as well. So it was, very sad to hear that the passing, and I just wanted to take a moment just to remember him and thank him for everything he did, because he was very much interested in voter accessibility and outreach. He was also a member of the ACLU.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Diane. Yeah, we will miss Mike and his presence. So thanks for that moment. And if anyone else, Sarah or Beth,
Do you have anything to add about
would
the
like
back?
to add anything about Mike?
Just, he was very devoted to all of the things he did with the voting activities. He also, which you may find surprising, but he was an excellent proofer. He, would always catch things, I think it's through listening to, the sentence instead of just looking at it, reading it. When he's listening to it, he could probably catch things that I might have missed. So he would let me know or let us know if we were having an issue with our remote accessible vote by mail service. He helped us out with testing of that. So much appreciated, man.
Yeah, he will be missed.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Sarah. And we will pass it over to the elections division.
So
Jim.
The floor is yours.
Terrific. Thank you all very much for being here. This was truly a historic election. And we're still in the middle of the election in that we have a recount that is in process right now. But I'll get to that in a little while. But this election has been really remarkable. We had about 40% turnout rate this election. So as elections go for presidential primaries, this is relatively low. Approximately, it was 12 years ago that we had one that was lower. So so over a decade, we've had higher voter turnouts in presidential elections, so presidential primary elections. So it was, again, a good turnout as it relates to the statewide totals. The statewide was somewhere in the neighborhood of around 35%, and we were 5% higher at 40%. And technically, it was 39.98%. So we really didn't hit the threshold of 40, but we're rounding up. And but we did much better than the statewide average. So hats off to San Mateo County residents there, but it was relatively low voter turnout. Let me see, in terms of the voting patterns, okay, by far and away, as Voters' Choice Act, county and also has a vote by mail election model and structure. Vote by mail are the largest number of ballots that we process. And they come in a variety of forms. We received about 163,000 plus vote by mail ballots. As you can see, vote center ballots are far less. And those usually tend to come in the last couple of days, the last weekend before, and really on election day. When you look at our charts as to people that are coming actually into vote centers to cast their ballots, it's very, very low for the majority of the election. And then come the day before election and on election is when those vote center ballots and participation really spikes. And that's for voting. But vote centers also, you need to keep in mind that it's not just there for voting, on-site voting. It really is there to provide a vast array of services. You can register to vote, you can answer questions, you can talk to a person. And we have a decentralized process with about 49 vote centers out throughout the county. And that service touch, in terms of having people first to be able to talk to people is really important. So just because we have a lower number of vote center ballots cast doesn't mean that vote centers are not extremely valuable in an election process, given the information that's provided. Interestingly enough, we get the majority of our ballots returned before election day, and then vote center votes and before election day about 20%. But we have quite a bit, as you can see, that come in after election day. In California, you have to have your ballot envelope postmarked no later than election day midnight, and then you have 7 days for it to get to our office. But if you miss those,
Are there slides
dates,
that we're supposed to see? We're not
Is there
seeing
a-
slides.
Yes, so we can't share the slides. I think the host needs to enable us.
Oh, I thought you were looking at exactly what I had.
Good catch. I was wondering. I was like,
Good catch. Okay, you should have access now.
Okay. Are you there?
Does he need to hit share? There we go.
there we go.
So, yeah, probably
Oh.
Chantel is doing
Thank you
the,
very much.
there we go.
Okay, so pretty much covered what here this slide covers what I've been saying. And the majority of the ballot, a lot of the ballots come in election day plus 7 days. So that's why in a vote by mail structure model that we have, many of the results, particularly with close elections, aren't really determined until 7 days thereafter. And in this particular election, it went all the way down to the last day that ballots could be cured, challenge ballots could be cured. And we received one ballot just hours before the cure date, which I believe was April 2nd. And it came in at 3:35, 3:45. And I'll tell you a little story about that in a little bit. That is one of the reasons that Mr. Church has established a 30-day certification process. We do have the flexibility locally to have a shorter certification process because, again, within 7 to 15 days, we usually have most of the results and all of the ballots tallied. So we could certify earlier, but there's one key provision here, and that is that the law allows ballots to be cured, and those are challenge ballots. People, for the most part, that have challenge ballots is because they're either too late, and those cannot be cured, but a lot of them that can be cured are basically because they didn't sign their ballot return envelope. And that puts it into a holding pattern, puts it into a challenge ballot process. And, you know, in essence, we had about, we don't have the numbers here, but we had about 2,298, 2,300 ballots that were challenged. And a lot of them, it was because they just simply missed the deadline. And we had approximately 722, I believe that was the universe of ballots that were curable of that 2,300 that were challenged. And the curable ballots is what I'm focusing on right now, because the elections code basically gives voters who have a challenge ballot up to 2 days before the certification is completed to cure that ballot. And so if we have a shorter certification period, that kind of short stops that process a little bit earlier. And we were having cured ballots from all the way, as I mentioned, to the very end. And it really impacted the election, the ability to have, you know, that curing process go all the way down. And it also really hit home the story of every vote counts. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a while. So, you know, there's, for the most part, it is a really challenging, no pun intended, process with the challenge ballots, because what we have to do when people don't sign their envelopes, we have to reach out either, you know, in writing, by phone, email, to basically assist those voters cure their ballots. So there's a lot of work that happens after Election Day to make sure that every vote counts. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our elections overview and infrastructure. We had 434,000 plus registered voters out of 510,000 that are eligible voters. We had 130 candidates on the ballot. We had 220 ballot styles, which is a lot, 880 total. And that's credit to our election staff to address the complexity of a very large election system here in San Mateo County, because we have 20 cities, we have 70 jurisdictions, and of course, all of the 4 languages that we have. And ballot styles have to be developed unique for each residence. And you know, that includes the city they're in, the school district, you know, statewide, the assembly, and each ballot, it has its own style. And in this election, we had 220 different ballot styles for a total of 880. That is an incredibly complex process. It's highly technical. And it goes back to, you know, one of the things that we've talked about here in elections, that the foundation of elections are people and technology. And we have the utmost professionals that are working for us that are highly skilled, and we have the very best technology. If you don't have those two working seamlessly together, there are challenges that come up. And challenges come up simply because no one is infallible, not either technology or people. So we anticipate that there will probably be some kind of snags, and then we have, you know, redundancies in place to be able to address that. Because with so many moving parts, there are always issues that come up in an election, and all of those issues are resolved. And that's because of our backup, our redundancies, and our plans. We had 20 jurisdictions on the ballots. There were 25 contests, 5 local measures, 1 state proposition. In terms of our infrastructure as a vote center, as a California Voters' Choice Act model and county, vote by mail is the mainstay of our elections infrastructure. We also provide remote accessible vote by mail, and that is people that are visually impaired or have the inability to come and vote. They can request a ballot electronically that they can mark and then send in through the mail. We have 56 drop box locations, which are monitored daily towards the end of the election. I think there's about a 24 to 72 hour requirement. We are on top of that. our ballot retrieval unit is just great, and they're really on top of their game there. And the drop box locations are really utilized quite a bit. We had 45 vote centers, again, a decentralized process in providing election services and voter services. If you go back to when we were a polling place county, and in California, there's a lot of polling place counties out there, well, 50% are still polling place. You had election central, you have one central office, and then you have precincts that precinct polling places to actually on election day for people to cast their ballots there. The decentralized process is just really geared for voter inclusion and, again, voter services, and our vote centers are our mainstay there. But just keep in mind that the technological challenges that we face as a Voters' Choice Act county in having all of the technology that has to go in play to have those vote centers, every single one of them, be connected to the statewide voter registration database, because everything happens in real time. You come into a vote center and we can determine your voter registration status in real time, instant. But that requires technology. And again, our hats are off to our technology folks in elections, because that is a very complex and intricate system that has to be built just to support our vote centers. We had 3 pop-up vote centers and plus 1 mobile vote center. Again, you know, a pop-up vote center is a vote center that is not in open for 4 days or more. And it's usually 2 days that we have pop-up vote centers, and that's based on demand. You see them in the coastside, and you see them in certain areas where there is a demand to have another vote center. We put that in. And then, of course, we have a mobile vote center that we placed in our airport in Half Moon Bay, the Half Moon Bay Airport right off of Highway 1, which is also a very popular vote center. We also have curbside ballot drop-off that worked really well with 16 vote centers. You know, our voting equipment and technology, I just touched upon that before, but this gives you an overview of the technological resources that have to be deployed. My hat's off to Mr. Church, who is recommended to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors has funded, you know, a very intricate, complex elections infrastructure here in San Mateo County. And this just gives you a little overview of what that looks like. And there's more to it than that in terms of the servers and all the backup and all the supports that have to go into play. One thing that we're innovative here in San Mateo County, again, we tend to be a leader in a lot of the innovations that occur in California in elections, but we've deployed 450 GPS ballot box tracking devices. Those GPS ballot box tracking devices are basically every ballot box that goes out, and those are, you know, in the vote centers that carry ballots and then have to come back on election day, are tracked with a GPS system. So we know exactly where they are at, whether they're at the center, whether they're en route, and this really comes in very, very handy on election day. We were tracking ballots all the way up to 2 o'clock in the morning on election day, and we wrapped up about 3 o'clock in the morning that night. And the GPS ballot tracking devices really helped us. When we didn't have that, it was really difficult. We were making a lot of calls where our ballot boxes, we always get them, but boy, this really added a lot. So that was a really great, innovative technique that we've deployed in this election. This, again, we had crossover ballots because of the presidential primaries. And, you know, we have a lot of non-party preference voters that don't designate a political party. We have 107,000. And we basically had crossover ballots where those voters, the Democratic, American Independent, Libertarian parties, allow those ballots to be, those non-party preference voters to vote in their primaries. But they do have to request a crossover ballot. We had about 6,706 total crossover ballots requested in this election. Let's talk about the race that we are currently in right now because of the recount. This, as I mentioned, is truly a historic election in San Mateo County, and perhaps even the state of California, in that for the 16th Congressional District, which covers both Santa Clara and San Mateo County, which is the top two election where the top two vote getters move on to the November general in a runoff, was tied for second and third positions. We haven't seen that ever, at least in my career here. And I searched the records here, we haven't seen it at all. And that is a testament to every vote counts. The last vote that came in on April 2nd. It came in just about an hour and a half. And that was a cured ballot. Okay, that again, a testament to San Mateo County having a 30-day certification process and allowing voters to cure their ballot. Well, those are voters who have voted, but they forgot to sign it for the most part. And that process allows people to come in all the way up to the very end. And on April 2nd, we had a ballot that came in, and it tied the race between Evan Lowe and Joe Smithian. We now have a request, we have two requests for a recount. Now, a recount, when you have such a close election, recounts really put the spotlight on the efficiency and the professionalism, the accuracy of your voting systems. Prior to the request of a recount, what we did, and this is again, we were one of the first counties in the state to do this, a lot don't do this. We open up our ballot images because in the state of California, you have to have a paper ballot. That's the law. But our systems scan those paper ballots, and then we have a digital image of every paper ballot. And what we offer the campaigns and proponents of measures, et cetera, when there is a very, very close election, is the ability to look at those scanned images of the ballots. They can't do anything with them, but they can look at them and they can ask questions. And we've had a lot of close races, not this close in the past, but that process of being open and transparent and letting the public look at the actual images that we have that are the basis of the final totals that we put together really provides transparency and openness in the process, and people do appreciate that, and it answers a lot of the questions. So we did that with both of these campaigns the week before. They were at our office. We set up 4 cubicles for them, and they literally reviewed any ballot that they wanted to in the 16th congressional district. So where we're going right now is after that process, we did receive a request for a recount from 2 voters, one in Santa Clara County and one in San Mateo County, for a recount. And we are now in the recount process in the sense that there are certain conditions that a requester of a recount has to meet. First one was to basically have their request in on time for a recount, and then to also meet the requirements of the recount in terms of designating a candidate for the recount, and also the system that they're going to use, manual or machine, and also provide a deposit to do the recount. And so all of those conditions in all likelihood will be met, and we will start the recount process sometime next week. And it's a very detailed process, and we will allocate quite a few employees to that endeavor. We do have, we're looking at setting up possibly 5 what we call recount boards that will be appointed by the chief elections official, Mark Church, and those boards will look at literally every ballot that was cast in the election. And it can start slow and end big. They can call off the recount at any time. It is a very expensive process. Right now, estimates have it that in San Mateo County, it'll be about 85,000. And because we keep in mind, we're 20% of the voters in the 16th district. And so Santa Clara has 80%. Their recount will probably run somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 if they have to do a manual tally. So it's an expensive process, and again, starts incrementally. And the interesting thing about it is that the law requires that every precinct be recounted in order for any changes to be valid. And so you can find one, you can start slow and you can find, a ballot maybe that could change. We had one in the Woodside election a few years ago, where even though we have our instructions that say, you have to fill your ballot in black ink or pencil, that's dark. We had one voter that submitted their ballot in red. They had red marker, and red does not show up on the scanners because there are instructions in red on our ballots. So it's very clear: do not fill your ballot out in red, right? And one did, and that one came up in the recount as an undervote. And when we looked at it, we could determine voter intention that they did actually mark the ballot all the way through, but it didn't scan because they didn't follow the instructions. And we found one. And that was the last recount that we had in 2022. So there is the possibility always of those anomalies coming up. But let's say that did happen, and one of the candidates moves forward. In order for that candidate to receive that ballot, that vote, every precinct in the district, both Santa Clara and here, has to be recounted. So that means they have to conduct a full recount to the tune of over $400,000 to get that done. So I've covered a lot of ground here. I've spoken a little fast, but I wanted to get a lot of information in. But my hat's off to a great election staff, to our citizen advisory committees. And on behalf of Mr. Church, I want to thank you all for just the incredible efforts that all of you put through in this process. And and again, it's not over yet. It's not over till it's over. It'll probably take another 2 to 3 weeks for the recount process to proceed, and you will be hearing more about that as we go along. So on that note, again, I want to thank everybody, and if there's any questions, I'll gladly, our staff here will gladly attempt to answer.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, Pam, put her hand up first.
I have a two-part question, and this affects the recount. Do both San Mateo County and Santa Clara County have the same VCA setup? Exactly the same. And do they both have the same curing process?
We're both Voters' Choice Act counties. It's not exactly the same. We have the same voting system, although it's not exactly the same. One's a little bit older than the other. They're all certified to date. But yes, Santa Clara County is a Voters' Choice Act county. We are a Voters' Choice Act county. And the curing process is required by law in terms of the certification. We both have a 30-day certification process, and the curing of those ballots that are in question, that are challenged, are governed by the elections code and state statute. So we are all working under the same rules and guidelines.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks for the numbers. It was good to see how we stacked up against the state. I guess my question is for, just so we could be looking at outreach strategies. Is there a way for us to find if any counties did especially well, or straight, like that had a surprising good turnout? Any counties in the state? Is there any way for us to look at all the counties and see their states? Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah. Yes, Secretary of State's site has all of the results for each county statewide, and you can actually take a look at their voter totals. There's a couple of anomalies when you do look at that. You'll see some counties had 100% voter turnout. Wow, how does that happen, right? Well, it's Alpine County, and they got 35 people. I mean, it's more than that. Okay, it's more than that. But those smaller counties do have a greater incidence to be able to have a larger voter turnout. And so when I saw that, I go, how can any county know? and it is usually the smaller counties that happens. Aside from that, in terms of large counties, we probably have one of the best voter turnouts in the state. Because as I mentioned, we have 5% over the state average.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a question. Because the recount won't be valid unless the whole process is finished, why would anybody just start it without intending to finish?
The system is designed for the candidate or the voter. Interesting. any voter can file for a recount. But the system is designed for the voter or the person requesting the recount to test the system and to identify those precincts that they think have the greatest chance of turning over a vote. So they start in those. And if they don't see a success ratio there in those precincts that they believe they should have a chance to turn a vote, and it doesn't happen, then many do decide to just not go through the whole process because of the cost. It's really very, very costly. So the process is geared for you to test your theory, your systems, and the people that are involved in these recount processes. I've been dealing with some of the working with some of the attorneys that are in this process. These folks are statisticians. They are professionals. This is their bread and butter. We're talking about attorneys that just specialize in election law. And they have this too as science in terms of determining the voter turnout by precinct, where that precinct will likely go based on the results that have been reported. In this particular case, it would be either a low or a median precinct. And they will focus on those that having the greatest chance of turning a ballot. If they don't see that happening, it's probably not going to happen in the other precincts that they're seeing. So it's an opportunity to start slow, build up, and you can go through the whole process, or you can cut it short if you feel that you're not really getting to where you want to be.
Eric, good question.
So you indicated that there were 3 pop-up voting centers and 1 mobile voting center. Could you explain the setup of those and the difference between those 2 facilities?
Well, first of all, a vote center is a vote center. It doesn't matter if it's a pop-up, doesn't matter if it's a mobile vote center. Vote centers are governed under the Voters' Choice Act by law, how they're set up, and everything that goes into a 1-day vote center goes into a 10-day vote center or goes into a 30-day vote center. So there's technically no real distinction except the location and the hours that they're open. We find, for example, in the coast, we'll have pop-ups in La Honda. We'll have a mobile vote center in Half Moon Bay, because those, again, and most people wait till the very end, right? They wait till the weekend before, they wait till election day and after. So it is inefficient to have a 10-day vote center there or a 4-day vote center. It's really much better, both for the community and also in administering the vote center structure, to just have it open for a day. So those are the primary distinctions of a vote center, whether it's a pop-up or whether it's a mobile or whether it's a 4-day or 10-day, is a vote center. There's really no distinctive differences except the number of days that they're open.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jesse.
How you doing today? Jesse here, good to see you again. I had a question on the pop-ups as well, because you mentioned that they were in 2 areas that became, I guess, higher demand areas. And I was wondering 2 questions. 1, what were those areas? I didn't quite catch it. And 2, I know that the EAP guidelines require voting centers per every 50,000 eligible voters. And I was wondering how those 2 areas didn't get included with the original vote center guideline parameters.
Well, in setting up vote centers, and that's a very good point, it's governed under the Voters' Choice Act, and there are formulas that you have to apply. And then it's not only the number of people that it serves, but it's also the location. And is it near transportation? Is it near corridors, that people have easy access to? So there's other factors that go into that. I know in Chantal or Tom, if you're here, the ones that we had in the coast side, if I'm not mistaken, was La Honda, Pescadero, and Half Moon Bay was the mobile vote center.
Yes.
And did we have another pop-up that I'm missing there?
East Palo Alto.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. So those were, per request to have, another on-site vote center on election day, and we accommodated that request.
Can I ask who requested that from those areas?
Well, in terms of the coast side, for the most part, we've been looking at that community for years, and they have requested, because they're very remote, and they have like Pescadero, or you have La Honda. So that's by experience. Nobody per se has requested it. We just feel that area being so remote in South County needed a service center, and so we made that determination for the most part. In East Palo Alto, we did get a request from the East Palo Alto City Council and City Clerk for a one-day pop-up, and Mr. Church approved.
Thank you.
Any other questions here in the room? Okay, Pam.
Yeah, thank you again, and I can't help myself, but anyway, will you be providing for us again the voter turnout percentage for the lowest turnout precincts in San Mateo County?
We will do that analysis, and it's also it's available right now for those who want to look at it. It's in the statement of the vote. So when the election is completed, election staff is working very busily to put all of this data together and then report it to the Secretary of State. And that document legally is called the statement of the vote. And the statement of the vote you may find on our website. And we have the website up here on our screen. So right off the bat, you can kind of look at that. But yes, we will be looking at that as it relates to our voter education and outreach, targeting some of our services to those communities.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you. Anybody on Zoom have a question for Jim before we let him go? Raise your hand. Not seeing any hands. Thank you very much, Jim, for that information, especially on the tied vote in the congressional district 16. That was very interesting watching that every single day, watching the votes go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you all for everything that you do. Really appreciate it on behalf of Mark and myself and our elections team. You folks are invaluable in making the system as good as it is. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
Hey, Jim, before you go, I just wanted to recap that we were not able to successfully get into the San Mateo County Jail for the March 5th election cycle. But we plan on trying to get in for November, and we still have a need for, a valid drop box or some type of pop-up voting center for the county jail participants, because there are eligible voters in there that are still being, basically blocked from voting without proper access to the jail facility. So we're still working on those efforts, and in November, we'll be back asking your office again to assist us with some type of voting access inside to your office.
We'll be there for you. One of the things that's the beauty of the Voters' Choice Act, of course, is that it is an vote by mail election, and the mail that opportunity is available to members that are in the jail. And so at this juncture, vote by mail is good. We try and work an immediate ballot pickup when we get that vote by mail. So we have good relationship with the sheriff. Getting into the facility, we start getting into really the purview of the sheriff and of the law. But we're there. Whatever we can do, we will do it.
Jim, if I could just weigh in on that, I see a problem with vote by mail in the jail in light of the fact that that's not anyone's permanent address. So how would the ballots get to the people who are being held in the jail? Just putting that out there. Thanks.
Jim, would you like me to touch on that?
Yeah, Sarah, go ahead.
I work with Hillary, who does voter registration, and we have a representative, an administrative sergeant at the jail who takes care of, like on the tablets, asks, do you want to register to vote? And then provides through either the service league or through the sheriff a voter registration form. Also, before we even get those forms, they send the list of the names of those people and their birth dates so that we can see if they've been disqualified from voting for some reason, such as, you know, if you've been declared not to have the mental capacity to vote by a judge. I mean, you know, it's more than just voting, but, you know, a mental capacity issue, felony issue, not that it's that you're serving a current term for a felony. But we do get, first off, we get their names, then we actually deliver the ballots. It was about 80, I believe, this time. We deliver them directly to the sergeant, and they distribute them to the people who have ballots with their voter guides. And then at that point, they're supposed to mail them back. Like everybody, you know, there is a way to do mail out. If they, for some reason, miss the mail, the sergeant has in the past actually taken the ballot, walked it over to County Center where we have a vote center, because it's only across the street basically. And as long as they can get it to the vote center by 8 p.m. on election day, the vote would be counted.
Thank you so much for walking me through that process. I really appreciate it.
So is 80 were delivered?
I'd have to double check.
Yeah.
I didn't look into that one question before we came today.
And there's like what, about 1,000 people in the jail?
There are. We have a much lower rate of voting than, say, San Francisco County. We've looked at that. They have the same population of inmates, which again, that's kind of odd because they're a much larger, well, they're a larger county. They had something like 600 people register to vote, while we, as I say, had about 80.
That goes due to the access, you know. We tried to get in, people here got approved. I was not approved to go into the jail. And I presume it was because I have a former conviction. I can't see any other reason why I would be denied, but that is the issue, is if we have people that are, you know, that would qualify to be eligible to vote, but aren't registered to vote, you know, then they're not making the list for delivery of the ballots in question, what she's talking about, because they're not on the register list yet. So if we could get in the jail to do like registration drives prior to November, you know, then it would make the turnout, you know, potentially greater. So that's what we're trying to figure out, you know, through this process.
Yeah, so Jim, really, this is, I think, what the ask is any assistance that the elections division can provide to support having folks like Jesse coming in with others of us going into the jail to do the voter registration, because definitely we're gonna get more people registered to vote if we get folks that look like them, that, you know,
Talk
have
like
been through
them.
similar experiences.
Pinning themselves with them.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And say, hey, man, you need to vote. This is why. And we had those conversations, and then look at the turnout on this election, right? The jail could have tipped the scale for somebody, you know? Seriously.
Yeah. So you have a point, Eric.
With the San Francisco jail, they actually don't, it doesn't seem they have outside people come in. It's actually the sheriff has a team of 3 that deals with sort of the community issues, and one of those being voting. So it's the sheriff's department there that is getting that high voter registration.
So that would have to be a sheriff's department that is deeply committed to making sure that we have one man, one vote, one person. One vote.
Yeah, because there's women in jail too. Absolutely.
And on the question of the sheriff's office's commitment to voting, the sort of cross-county comparison between San Francisco and San Mateo, the San Francisco Sheriff's Office offered to have a meeting with the San Mateo Sheriff's Office to sort of do it like a knowledge sharing session, and San Mateo County Sheriff's declined. So I question their commitment, frankly, but it's definitely something that needs to be pushed in advance of November.
Well, this is something we have time later in the meeting to talk about what do we want to do during the summer and basically before we get too close to November. And this is probably an area that we need to talk about that. But again, Jim, any assistance your office can provide to support us going in more frequently or coming up with a better process to get more people in the jails registered, we really appreciate.
Absolutely. And I know Mr. Church is there with you. So let's talk about that. And by the way, we're in the middle, we're not in the middle, but we're starting the November election now, in terms of hiring and getting our notices out. So the election is here. The November election is here right now.
I want to put one other piece on the table here in regards to registration in San Mateo County. The San Mateo County's Sheriff's Department has a history of, I'm not even sure what a polite word to use is, but against people of color. And that's very well documented, and and this is not your issue, but it's something that the election office needs to speak on our behalf in addition to what we're doing, because until they're called out on, racism, blatant racism, it's never gonna change. It's never gonna change. So we need your help on that aspect of it to get us in.
I know there's a new Citizens Commission, isn't there?
Yeah, but all of it, in addition to what we're doing. But
That would be
yes,
another area to
absolutely.
review. The Sheriff's Oversight Commission, I believe, that's made up of citizens.
Yeah, I don't think they've just finished the application process, so I'm sure they're going through and reviewing the applications. I don't think one has actually been appointed yet or defined specifically what kinds of things can that advisory committee do.
That's right.
This might be a good thing we can suggest.
Place to start, yeah.
I got another question for Jim. Jim, we're gonna let you go real soon here.
No, I'm with you here. No problem. No
All
problem.
right, well, I work in my organization, we do a lot of policy advocacy work, coalition building, writing policies and stuff like that. And so I approached Senator Bill Allen's office a few months back in regards to what's happening in San Mateo, asking about maybe a bill that could expand upon a bill that he championed in 2016 that gave the guidelines for the EAP to have 50,000, every 50,000 voters, a voting center, and every 15,000 voter mail drop boxes throughout the state. And that county jails were not mentioned in that bill. And so his staff looked at it and said, yeah, we weren't a part of, the process then because they came on board, later. But looking back at it, they can see, they don't know if it was just an oversight or if it was a deliberate leave off or whatever the case was, but it's definitely something that the senator will want to look at. And so what later on we discovered is that there's an assembly member, Brian, out of Los Angeles, who already took that, not from San Mateo, but from Los Angeles, took that same concept and started AB 544, which is progressing through the legislature now. It started off as all counties will be required to establish voting centers in the county jails per se, just across the board. However, that didn't receive the initial support that they would have liked it to receive. And so what they did was they modified it down to a 3-county pilot program to put voting centers in 3 counties, county jails as a requirement, right? To get it. So it went through the assembly. It's now going towards the Senate. That's something that we can probably jump on as supporters of it, as the VEOAC. But I was wondering, is your office prohibited or are allowed to sign on to or oppose legislation that governs in your area? Or would that be something that your office would be willing to support if you are able to?
Generally speaking, our office is nonpartisan in nature, but you do have an elected election official with Mark Church. And advocacy for voting rights, advocacy to improve the efficiencies of the system is something that at a policy level, Mr. Church is the one who makes that determination. But I'll tell you, hands down, since I've known Mr. Church and with beginnings of the Voters' Choice Act, he is there with inclusion of every member of our community. And so, again, it's something we would pass by him. It's a policy level decision. And again, for the most part, as an election official, you really have to maintain your, especially when you have an election, your neutrality and the nonpartisan nature of this office. We're umpires. But when, in terms of supporting legislation, again, policy level, Mr. Church has been there, and that's a decision that he would ultimately make. And I think
AB 544, Assembly Member Bryan, Bryan.
Jesse, will you tell me what are the 3 counties that this is happening in?
I can look it up for you while we're talking.
Okay, perfect. We'll talk about it a little bit more later, but I'd be interested in learning more.
So anything else for Mr. Irizarry, or can we let him go? Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate all.
our pleasure. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Okay.
Alrighty. If there are no other questions from Zoom, I'm checking the chat box and hand raises are none. So let's move on.
All right. So now we're moving on to
The March
The March.
primary recap. Let's share screen here. So I'll talk a little bit about what Thrive did, and then I'll go into what we received from you all. So in this past March primary, Thrive trained 50 organizations through our election education toolkit program. Which was funded by SCCF. We had about 12 grantees with the stipend model, who received not only the materials, but an additional small stipend to do some of the voter outreach. I have debriefed with most to all, and some of the feedback that they provided, I will be looking to implement this summer. My plans for this toolkit is that you all are able to have access to this toolkit by August. So you have at least 2 months to do some voter outreach before the November election. Please know I'm taking all your feedback into consideration. Some examples of feedback that I received is having bilingual materials on one sheet of paper so that you can flip back and forth between languages. Another feedback is that people want to see themselves on this toolkit. So if you want to be the face of your toolkits or have community members who you'd love to put on your toolkit, let me know. Send me the photos. This is a reminder to you all. Send me your photos. Send me your content, because as you will see in the next slide, here are some photos that I've received here. Let me just go in from what I received that I may be looking to include. So as you can see, coastside farmers here created their own banners using just simple images from the vote centers. We have Backhack here doing some voter outreach at a local event. Then on the right-hand side, this is what I really wanted to bring you all. I was at an event tabling, and somebody came up to me to tell me that they have been following some of the things that the VEOAC was doing, and they wanted to replicate some of the work at their kindergarten site. And they had their own elections in this kindergarten site. There was kindergartners running for president, class president, and you can see them casting their votes. And on the right-hand side, you can see people were, like kind of coloring in, the kids were coloring in who they wanted to be class president. So I just want you to know that, and this whole conversation started because they were holding a sticker that said future voter from our election toolkit program. And just to tell you, like, the impact we're having.
I love this right here. This is amazing. We should have this in all the schools. Maybe even for adults. It's a practice, make a board game out of it or something.
What a beautiful idea. So you all are making not an impact not only on adults. This is, kind of shifting what folks who are working with younger kids are doing. So I want to say kudos to you all, right? The work is being shown. And this is just another reminder that the future is in the kids' hands. So why not teach them how? So just to let you know a little bit about what we did. Let me go back to the other slide. Okay, So if you have additional feedback for our toolkit program, let me know. I'll be implementing that in the summer. I'm also trying to keep track of all the languages that we've provided in the past. We've had Tagalog, Chinese, Spanish. And if there are any interesting requests for any other languages, let me know. I'm happy to work with you on that. Okay, and then the other part of our March primary recap is that Thrive actually held 3 bilingual candidate forums in Spanish and English. We held the District 4 candidate forum with over 600 views on YouTube and over 200 people registered. This was in collaboration with Leadership Council. We held another one out in the coast with our partners like Puente and all the coastside partners. 7 organizations in total made the Congressional 16th District Candidate Forum happen. And I'd like to say, I don't know about you, Joanne, but you should feel proud. Yes, there's a tie-up, but we may have had some influence in that by hosting this candidate forum out in the coast, bringing people. The room was packed. We had over 80 people in this one small room who were excited to just have the candidates come to Half Moon Bay. So kudos to all of our partners. And the last candidate forum that the Thrive held was in collaboration with SVCF, the Choose Children initiative, with all the supervisorial districts. And it was a candidate forum just on children issues. So I'd like to say that we were busy. Yeah, from January to March, and I want you all to know that we are still here. If you have any inputs or want to engage with the November election, with Thrive and candidate forums, election toolkit, whatever it is, I'm here to support the work that you all are doing and amplify the work that VEOAC is doing. So thank you. That is it from me. Any questions on March primary recap?
Or just feedback in terms of any events that your organizations held that you felt were particularly successful, or things you might want to do differently for November?
I had asked to add the question of, is there anything from the elections office? We provide a lot of materials, bookmarks, quarter sheets, flyers, unhoused flyers, parolee voting right flyers, goodness, we're providing a lot of different things. And is there anything that you think we're wasting our time on, or anything that we should add? We continue to try and do it in many languages.
Good morning. I'd like to say something. It's Carmen from Siren Immigrant Rights. And I did want to thank everyone at the elections office. They saw us very frequently. And I wanted to let you know, one of the things that we noticed that worked really well for us, and we were canvassing on the weekends and part of the weekdays, we were phone banking. But one of the things that we noticed that did really well for us, we were tasked with reaching the Latino community. We partnered with the Chavez supermarkets, and I didn't know how it was going to go, and I was floored with how many people, and I mean of different colors. You'd ask, are you registered to vote? Do you want information? How can we help you? So many people. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but I know some days it was in the hundreds that we would reach. We'd be out there for a couple hours, and we were all over the county. We were all over we were in San Mateo, we were in East Palo Alto, we were in Redwood City. And I just wanted to bring that up, that sometimes we think, well, no one's going to answer, no one's going to talk to you. We would be there on the weekends when they're doing their shopping. We got a hold of a lot of people, or at least in front of a lot of people. But I did want to thank you guys for the opportunity. We didn't know if it was going to work. We're very happy that it did work.
The League of Women Voters used to actually take our quarter sheets to Chavez markets to put into bags there.
It wasn't League of Women Voters. It was another organization that Guerrero was associated with, not the League.
It was We Vote Redwood City in collaboration with Casa Círculo Cultural, which we still do.
Excellent.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters South San Mateo County. They came to one of our what we call chats, short for kitchen table chats, spoke to the community there. We have people not just from Belhaven, but also from East Palo Alto, And we'll be looking at how successful that was. But what we do know is that coming personally like that inspires people, and maybe they didn't vote this time, but they'll be ready for the next time because we'll be following up on that. So I just want to thank the league again for coming to us.
And if anybody wants to do some tabling at Second Harvest Food Distributions, they had invited us, the elections office, to do that, and the one in Santa Clara County for those locations. But they have a lot of food distributions. And it is, one we went to, for example, I mean, we had learned some things, like it was at the Bayshore Community Center in Daly City. And it turned out basically 99% of the clients spoke Cantonese. So if usually we're told, oh, they speak these 4 languages, English, Spanish, Chinese, and Filipino. And it was like, no, none of the above. And so that, we've learned now to work even closer with Second Harvest when asking about distributions and sometimes they'll say, well, we don't know for sure. Like if they speak to their, that distribution coordinator ahead of time, they can do it.
They know.
Sarah, I have a follow-up question too. The follow-up question is, were you able to get the materials in Cantonese if they needed it?
Well, materials in Chinese are the same written in Cantonese and Mandarin. So that's the good news. It's how you say it that's the difference between the 2 languages. So, so if we are only told Chinese, we might have somebody, we've always done Mandarin, and so we might not be prepared for Cantonese. So, we're in different audiences. You really need to know that deep down.
Thank you, Sarah. There's a follow-up in the chat that says, is there a report available for the primary election that shows the voting rate by neighborhood and ethnicities?
Ooh, definitely not by ethnicity, because that is, even Mindy Romero from USC, she would spend months to do that. And she had to, assume like Spanish surname, because not everybody marks their, either their race or whatever the optional question, how it's worded on their voter registration.
She also tried to match information from the census.
Yeah.
Overlay that with the voting precincts.
Yeah, it's
So
very
very tedious.
Yeah, so not that deep. And I'm sorry, the other, as far as neighborhood, well, the precincts only have about 1,000 people in each. So that's pretty neighborhood oriented. So if you can go to our website and there's an area called resources and look up the precinct map and you'll see, the pretty pictures and colors, and you'll go, okay, East Palo Alto, and it says the name of the city, and then it'll have an overlay of the different precincts there.
What's the name of the website? I'm sorry.
smcvote.gov.
smcvote.gov.
And then you usually provide us with a table that shows the lowest turnout precincts.
Yeah, I've done my analysis and I'm having someone double check it.
Okay.
We have a brilliant mathematician person, but it is, I took it from in the statement of the vote. I went to the precinct turnout list and looked and said, okay, there are like 30 precincts that were below 30% turnout. And it's pretty half and half between North and South County. And I saw that 15 of those have been on our precinct low turnout list for years.
I like that, yeah, because you do start seeing some of the same places and over and over.
Yeah, we're just, East Palo Alto, and Daly City are 2 tough areas to encourage voter turnout.
And you say those, it's broken up by 1,000?
About 1,000.
Per precinct, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll see those numbers next to the precinct too, so that like if a precinct only has 2 people, there are very few, but just a couple have just like 2 people. Those 2 don't vote. I did not include them.
It would be a 0 then from that precinct? What do you?
Yeah.
It would?
And okay, those two people, I'm not gonna worry about, but the precincts that have, most all of them have 600 to 1,200.
So how do we know the number of people that have actually moved? Because remember, I've talked to you about, I have a roommate from 15 years ago, still gets ballots. She said she did what she was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I have to trust that. But then that means that's one less person in my precinct that they have down as voted.
Well, did you get a ballot in the mail for her this election?
Yep.
Bring it to me next time,
I will-
personally, since we're not.
I haven't been up to the office in a while anyway.
Sarah.
Yeah, no, I want it so that I know that, we get that person off. Wow, moving, that's a tough one. I mean, we do get a lot of notices, third-party notices from United States Post Office, from the DMV. Those would be our major, let us know you moved, besides, of course, people doing it themselves. So hopefully between the three ways. But obviously, there are a few that we're gonna miss between all three ways.
So Jim had a slide about crossover ballots. I don't know if anyone else caught it, but one of the local newspapers, I think it was a Daily Journal, I could be wrong, had this outrageous article, front page article a few days before the primary, where the headline was like, local man gets 2 ballots.
Yes.
And it seemed like there was some kind of flaw in the system, and that, there was gonna be, double voting, and all it was is that he got a crossover ballot. It was the most outrageous thing I've ever seen, the local paper, well, maybe not the most outrageous thing, but one of the more outrageous things I've ever seen in advance of an election. And I wonder if we should, even consider talking to them so that they don't do stuff like that.
I mean, in the ballot, on the ballot wrap, it says getting, that multiple ballots is part of the process. Like if you get one because you currently live in, Main Street, Redwood City, and then after your ballot has been mailed to you, you re-register because you moved, we're gonna send you that second ballot for your new location. You change parties over the process. Again, you'll get a second ballot if you changed after we've already
You
made
asked
the
for a
list.
crossover ballot.
Yeah.
You've already, they may just both be going out like a day apart.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to get everybody early. We sent a postcard in, a fold-over card that people could return back in November to say, hey, send it back to us so you don't get 2 ballots. Because if we get you on the list early enough, we'll send you your crossover Dem ballot. But if we don't get it until February, when most people think about it, when they get their ballot and go, there's no president on it, that's when it's like, well, yes, you're going to get a second ballot.
So is your point that there should be follow-up to that article?
Well, I mean, because I think it was.
Correcting the
Letter to the
misinformation?
editor.
I mean, I think if someone read it closely and then they would understand it, but just like, some people just seeing the
It's a
headline
picture.
would have basically got the impression that the election was compromised, that there was,
Yeah.
election fraud going on or something like that.
That's how they
only every
stay in
4
business
years.
with misinformation. You're talking about the San Mateo Journal? Because we have one in Santa Clara County that's close up.
I believe this was the
Same
Daily
thing.
Journal, but I could
Yeah.
be wrong.
Yeah,
I think
that's
so.
what they do. Because the elections office send in a lot of information.
Oh,
on
yeah.
Voting and all of that was sent to the newspaper.
If it's
So-
not controversial, it's not news.
I know. So I think it was the exact same headline, the newspaper that comes out of Palo Alto.
I got a question on crossover voting, because I remember he put the stat up and I was confused about it, because I don't really understand what's happening with that. Like if somebody wants to vote for a candidate that's not of their party, is that considered a crossover vote and they have to get permission to do that?
Sort of. That would be that's sort of the answer. If you register as no party preference, which almost 25% of San Mateo County's voters are, so if you choose that during the presidential primary election only, so every 4 years, and makes it, no one remembers the rules every 4 years. Usually, each party can decide if it will allow crossover voters in its primary. So it's up to the party.
In the primary though.
Yes,
So primary, again, some new terminologies for me. So primary is to decide who's going to be the front runner candidate against the other party?
for president, yes.
Just for president,
In
nothing else.
California, it's just for president.
Okay, so crossover only applies to the president. It don't apply for anything state and local.
No, everything else is like everybody gets to vote on, I mean, you know, as far as if it's Pacifica's measure, everybody in Pacifica can vote on it. But if it's,
Not in the race, no
All that
crossover.
stuff's top two, so of any party, so governor, senator, state senator.
You can just vote however you want to
senator,
vote.
It's the top two, so it's just the presidential primary,
Okay.
so it's one race every 4 years
Okay,
that you have
okay.
to explain.
it's hard to explain.
I'm not the first one
One
that's
race.
confused on that.
No, no,
Okay.
there's a lot of confusion.
On crossover
and
voting.
That's why we're here to answer those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cause I know somebody's gonna ask me that. And I wanna
Oh,
know.
yeah.
So let's see if I got it. So basically, in the presidential primaries only, if you wanna vote for a candidate that you're not registered with that particular party, then that party may require you to request permission to vote like the Republicans do, right?
You have to re-register as a
As a
Republican.
Republican to vote for them.
Yeah.
Democrats will accept anybody, cause they just want
You
the
have to
numbers.
ask.
Oh, you have to ask?
Well, you just have to ask for the ballot, not permission, but
Okay, ask for the ballot, cause they'll accept anybody. And the other ones require you to be a member.
so 3 of the 6 require you to be a member, and they can choose to make a different decision 4 years from now.
Is the Green Party one of the?
Green Party was not an open primary.
Okay.
You had to re-register if you wanted to vote for
Green
that.
is like the Democrats, and who's the third
No,
one?
no, no.
I mean, Green is like Republicans, and who's the third one?
In the closed, okay, so let's think. Oh,
Uh,
Peace and Freedom, American Libertarian, American Independent was open, wasn't it?
The Libertarian and American Independent and Democrats
Yeah.
are crossover eligible. Green, Republican, Peace and Freedom are closed, so you have to be a
Now,
member.
what's the benefit of being closed
You get them registered with your party.
only? So it's like,
And they'll
okay,
never leave.
I think the Republican Party is, you know, there is that feeling of, well, you don't get people who are pretend Republicans, like they are Democrats who decide, hey, I'm gonna vote in the Republican and screw things up, you know, as far as towards, it may be something like that included.
interesting.
So any other feedback from folks in terms of the March primary before we start talking about what do we want to do in the summer? We have.
For me,
5
one thing
minutes.
that did work, I like that the county, we kept on trying to find a date to meet in Pescadero. That didn't work out, but I think Chantel did the presentation in Spanish during our staff meeting. So the nice thing about that is that everybody had to be part of it. Where when it was, they were gonna come in person, it was just like, oh, if you wanna be there, come by during lunch and you can be part of it. So I feel like for the future ones, I feel like that just makes sense. Have them come in during our scheduled team meetings. And then everybody gets the information, the presentation. Then I had lots of follow-up questions later on the week after that. So I feel like that worked out really well.
Great, great.
And I guess we can report up. We tried to go into the county jail. Some people got approved, somebody didn't.
The approved people, did they go in?
No.
So we're still gonna coordinate that, but we have so there were 2 denials. Jesse indicated already that his clearance was denied. That was appealed. And you know, we submitted an appeal. Diane actually was kind enough, and Sarah was kind enough to write letters in support of that. So we had a pretty strong packet for the appeal. We submitted that and it was denied We submitted it in the evening and was denied at 8 AM the next morning. So I'm pretty confident that they're working around the clock. It's amazing how
They're really efficient
they
now,
are.
right? All of a
Here,
sudden.
sign this.
That's efficiency
Yeah.
at its finest, right?
And how long did it take for the initial denial? How many weeks? for
Yeah,
that?
it took weeks for
Took a
that.
long time to get that.
Even for the approval, I took for,
So
wondering,
what,
did it?
part of what we ended up doing was we went to San Mateo City College, reaching out to, students and stuff. I learned that most of them are oblivious to voting.
Yeah, youth are.
Yes, but they're not, these ain't high schoolers. These are,
Yeah.
young adults, right? And they don't participate. They do not care. It's like they're like, they might, they have the same attitude as I imagine they do down in Menlo Park and the other place, the north, south sides or whatever, right? It was like, it was like, you, in order to get someone really to get involved, you have to spend some time with them, and you ain't gonna do it just stopping at a table in a quick interaction, especially when they're running between classes or something, right? So that was interesting. I think I gained a lot just from interaction, down there. We also visited their offices. I met a wonderful woman. I can't remember her name right now, but if she walked in here, I would know she is. That was with the Pacific Islanders. I forget the name of the office there, but they had, I really liked her a lot. So I figured they got a great program because of her, right? And so she wants to connect up. And so, I plan on reaching back out to her. We also decided, since we couldn't get into jail, to shoot like a promo video outside of the jail, as some of our B-roll and in a sit-down conversation, talking about the importance of voting and just doing like a promo video for that. So that's in the works. We're waiting for the final edits, and then we give our inputs and what needs to be on there, and take off the word inmates. We don't like that word, and stuff like that. So we're still working on the production part, but the filming part is done. We done like, over 90 minutes to 2 hours of footage with me talking that much, actually. I didn't even realize I talked that much until I watched it, and I was like, damn, he asked me one question, I talked for 20 minutes. I was like, it could be looked at as impressive, it could be looked at as like, wow, so, but it's a trip watching yourself, right? You ever watch yourself and be like, "Ugh, I hate that, and then after about 20 times, you say, I'm not that bad. But we did the video, and what else?
Yeah, so once the editing's done with that, we're gonna roll that out online and certainly share it with this group. We produced some new flyers, and which I've got some samples of those, which is a very simple sort of bare bones description of the voting eligibility of persons with contact with the criminal justice system. And we revised, which I don't have with me, a much more detailed flyer. And those are, usable for the November election, and at least until the rules change, if they do, in relation to ACA 4, which doesn't seem like it's going forward anyway. So yeah.
So what's the plan in terms of trying to get Jesse and, I forgot the other gentleman's name who didn't get
Yeah, so
into the jails?
So for Paul's appeal, we haven't appealed yet. We're, considering there's no like stated deadline, although they're probably gonna be doing that pretty soon. You don't wanna have exactly the same result, but it's quite possible we will. Now, at that point, we can, decide whether to just go ahead with, doing the initial tour with those who were not denied, or trying to, appeal to the sheriff directly. The way it works is, they have the first line, and then goes to, I think it's Officer Del Porto is officially handling the appeals. We could go directly to the sheriff. We could even consider, you know, other governmental bodies. But yeah, one way or another, we definitely need to move that forward well in advance of November.
So one thing I'm willing to do is I will talk with Nancy Goodvan, who fixed an SMC, because she knows all the different people and explain to her the situation and see if she can suggest who would be the best person to next talk to see if we can move this forward. So I'm happy to follow up with Nancy on that.
Diane, do you know Paul Bocanegra?
I mean, I know
You know
of
of
him,
him.
yes, and
He is, he was denied clearance, and due to his personal relationship with the sheriff, she overrode the denial. We might,
okay.
I'd be happy to see if
Yeah,
I can help.
that's why I thought with
too.
Nancy, because I know fixing SMC did a lot in terms of supporting the current sheriff, so hopefully there's some good relationship there. Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, and Paul's on he's fixing San Mateo.
Yeah, yeah.
He's rejoining the
So
board.
you do two first.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was surprised that Paul got denied, you know,
Well, they don't give you the part of the issues, they don't really give you a reason, they just say denied. So again, just writing a letter in support, it's like, you don't know.
yeah. And I'm thinking, see, at first I was thinking that, you know, it's the only thing I could think of is my own case factor. But then when I look at other people that get denied from the organization, and then we also went to Santa Rita, and myself and another colleague of mine were both denied. So I'm thinking that it could be they don't like our organization. You know, seriously, when they see it, because of what we stand for, right? So Legal Services for Prisoners with Children and All of Us and None is fighting for the human and civil rights of those who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. And so who's our opposition on all our policies and legislations are law enforcement entities such as the sheriffs, such as the CCPOA, you know. And so we have to call them out because of their bad laws and practices, right? And so we're going after laws, like we try to get visiting rights in the prison system. And our only opposition at first was the sheriffs and the prison guards. The sheriffs, they dropped out because it didn't apply to those serving time in the county jails, right? So we left them off. It just left the CCPOA. Well, we got visiting rights passed in the Assembly, passed in the Senate, vetoed by Gavin Newsom. Why? Because our opposition was the CCPOA, who didn't want us to, they want to use visiting as a leverage against the prisoners. So therefore they can say, well, you violated the rules, so therefore your family can't see you this weekend, right? And before it used to be a right, no matter what happens in there, if you go to see your son, your daughter, your family member, your husband, you know, bring your children, whatever, you're going to get in as long as they're not involved with something directly. Something could happen and they're still going to bring that person out, you know, to visit their family. Then when they took the family visits and made it a privilege, now that's when all these problems started happening, where they're denying people, or you could be on the visit, they'll flash the lights, visiting's over with, and just kick everybody out. And people spent money, traveled far, you know, brought their kids, took time off from work, you know, to make it up. I mean, all these things. And, you know, it was just I was just shocked when Gavin Newsom vetoed that bill. I mean, because we had thought different of him, you know, for my demographic, because he was giving love, as we looked at it, to those trying to get out, right? And then turned around and showed he was a professional politician, you know. So, you know, it's tough, but you know, this is where we're at with it right now, you know. And we'll get to the part about the current legislation on 544 that maybe we can do something about, as far as lending our support from San Mateo County, at least from the VEOAC, to show that we're interested. Maybe I looked it up too, which 3 counties. It doesn't say what 3 counties, so maybe there's an opportunity for San Mateo to be, you know, like to say, hey, we would like to participate in the pilot program.
We like being first.
Yeah. Jim likes to always say, we're the first.
So the one to reach out to for that would be directly to Assembly Member Bryan's office, since it's his bill. So that would be who we would actually reach out to, and we could talk about, you know, the procedures on that stuff.
I appreciate that, Jesse, and as you heard from Jim, there's some local support on that, right? Like, and the VEOAC, I will assess with Diane what our next steps are. I think she has a good step, talking to Nancy first, and then we have to figure out what is the advocacy for AB 54. But it sounds like this is an ongoing conversation.
Yes.
And it sounds like you have all the information you need, you just need partners to back you up.
Yes.
And we can brainstorm around that. So I appreciate you bringing all the context. And as Sarah said, I'm sure the elections office will lend some support.
Mark Church.
And you have other partners like the ACLU who just mentioned that they may be able to talk to Paul Bocanegra.
I know Paul.
Yeah,
I
okay,
met Paul, I should say.
okay.
Yes.
So he would be a great resource too, and I know he's very vocal about the youth and that. So I appreciate all the efforts. I want to highlight that there's one comment in the chat box. This is from Davina and talking a little bit about opportunities upcoming, which Diane will get into. There's an Earth Day event in East Palo Alto this Saturday and midweek, and the midweek farmers market that starts next week morning at Bloom House. If people are interested in doing some voter outreach in those hard to reach precinct areas, right? And then this is, we'll kick off the next section of VEOAC is just talking about what kind of activities are coming up that people are looking to engage with future voters and how we should plan for our summers. We are in, let me think, April? It's April, right?
We are in April already.
We have about a month or so before we get into the summer, so we want to hear from you. How are you preparing for the November election? As you all can tell, the elections office is already in the November election season. How are you all taking this opportunity, those additional 2 months or so to plan for November? I told you that Thrive is looking to have all our toolkit materials by August. So that gives you all about 2.5 months so that you can do your own voter outreach. But what are you all doing in your own organizations to prepare for this November? I want to hear about it. Diane wants to hear about it, but because like Jesse said, Jesse mentioned he will be very busy this summer with the advocacy, getting people into the jails, all the stuff that he's leading. And I want to hear from you all how VEOAC and Diane and I can support the work that you all are doing in your own individual organizations as well.
So one of the things that I know we've set up before is a calendar, but I'm not sure how much we were using it, because that's a really good way. You set up a shared Google calendar, because that's a way just to alert other members of VEOAC what's going on, and you can include in that if you have a request for assistance, put that as part of the definite or the description of the activity.
Yeah, there is a calendar and
So include, so you need to send it out.
so here's the best practice for you engaging the VEOAC in any future events is when you create an event on Google Calendar, for example, tag our specific email address, and that calendar is public. And I will be able, and everyone here should have access to that calendar, and you can see on there, hey, the League of Women Voters is hosting an event on the 24th. It'll be in person. They're looking for people to table on X, Y, and Z. And you can sign up for that. You can bring materials from your own organization and tell people what you do, plus do this additional voter outreach piece. So we have that available. I don't think we've been the best at using it.
No.
So I see a lot of people in person here, and I'm looking at the Zoom. I will add the email address in the follow-up. Make sure to tag that email address as an invite, you can invite them on a calendar.
Is this
Explain
the one where, where we're on the subscription list to receive like upcoming events and stuff like that I get in the mail? This is something totally different.
That's Thrive's only, that's our usual newsletters. You should all be signed up for that.
Right,
Because that's where we
But
showcase.
this is something different.
This is something different that we talked about a couple months ago, where we all sat around this table and we created a calendar on a Google Doc. And Diane and I came together and created a Google Calendar for you all to put your events on there. And I think only one person has used that calendar, outside of Thrive and SF People Power. So what this is when you create an event on Google Calendar, so let's see if I can share my screen. You can invite the specific email address, and then the invite will be shown. Let me pull up my calendar. My calendar's a little busy, so let me clear some things up.
Well, we're just in, given the time,
Yeah.
maybe when you send out the follow-up, if you could just list the specific steps people need to take to get their event onto the calendar.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that we want to make sure we reach that aren't here.
How do I see the calendar from my phone right now?
You can see it if you are subscribed to the calendar. If you're subscribed to the calendar, voteroutreach.smc@gmail.com, you should have access to that calendar. It's a public calendar. You have to add it as a calendar on your own calendar.
Okay,
Using
but I
the
go,
link that we
I Google
provided.
that website first, which is.
No, it's not a website. It's just a Google Calendar. So let me share my
Okay,
screen.
So I gotta go to my calendar to get to it.
Again, you need to write out the steps
Yeah.
for some of us.
Yeah.
It was
Yes,
voter
really.
outreach at SMC. Then what?
No, it's
As
voter outreach smc@gmail.com.
I'll share my screen because, okay, so it's right here.
Can't see it.
Oh.
That's too low. Voter outreach. Give us the entire.
voteroutreach.smc@gmail.com. So let's say on June 24th, I am hosting a voting tabling event. Oh,
I know how to do that part. I just don't
right?
know how
You go to
get
more
it.
options and then you go voter outreach smc@gmail.com. And in this description, I will say, you'll say the details of the event, when, where, all that, who, when, where, why. And then you'll say, I need 2 organizations to table, or, whatever you want to, you should add it in the description so that when I'm looking at the calendar, I can see, okay, who created the event? What do they need from me? And when is it? Where is it? And then you save.
I will take on writing up.
Thank you.
Because so that way I know,
Yeah.
I'll know how to do it.
Cause I just don't know how to add your calendar onto mine.
Right,
That's
so
the
I
point.
will.
At least maybe it's not something you can do on a cell phone. Probably have to do it on a laptop.
It's in the settings. I don't know how to do it on a cell phone, but on the
Yeah, you probably
settings,
have to do it on.
if you go
laptop.
to settings, you can add the calendar to, but Diane and she will write up the steps and I will create a little video as Pam suggested. A 2-minute video, if that's easier for you all.
So you see the little arrow. Yeah, because it's not intuitive on subscribing to other Google calendars, but I'm just trying to do it within my family.
That's the thing.
It's not intuitive, but it is easy once you get it down.
Usability person.
Okay,
Just quick question, are we gonna get the slides from the presentation that Jim?
Yes, I can make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Should we send you a message or are you gonna just send it out to the group?
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to Thrive and they'll send it out to the
To
group.
the people that attendees.
yes, there you
Thank you
go.
so much.
The RSVP list and any additional, this is another place for you all to announce your events that are happening. So additionally to the stuff that you all give me at this meeting, I am able to add it to our policy and advocacy newsletter, which is seen by I think about 4,000 people. So if you're interested in getting your events out there, usually I have a pretty good hand at subscribing to your individual organization's newsletters, so I can pinpoint some of the highlight some of the events that you all are doing. But if there's something, I know that you, Eric and Jesse do a great job at sending me events. Send me your events. Tell me when, where, and why, and I can post it wherever I can.
Okay.
I'm doing my best at supporting in that way and having other people see your events as well. So besides the VEOAC, that's another opportunity for you all to get people at your events. And then the calendar will be just internal for the VEOAC committee members for us to see how we're doing on voter outreach, what's coming up and how we can plan ahead. If I see that Puente is having an event in July and I want to be part of it, even if I'm not formally invited, right, I can see on the calendar it's there. They need 3 people to table. I want to sign up. I will be there.
Speaking of events, right? This month, April 28th, 29th is our 12th year of doing Quest for Democracy. And Quest for Democracy basically is we bus from Southern California, Central and Northern California, formerly incarcerated people and system impacted people, people who have loved ones locked up or who just care about the issues, to Sacramento for Advocacy Day, where they get formerly incarcerated people get to speak in their own voices directly with their state senator or assembly member or their staff persons on the legislation that is currently pending on issues that directly impacted them or impact someone that's incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. And a lot of times, you know, this is so carry the day type stuff because they deal with a lot of bills. They're dealing with stuff that got nothing to do with something we might not even care about, right? It's like all these bills are coming through. And so the people that get the most attention are the ones that show up in their offices to put a face on what the legislation is. And so this is an opportunity for hundreds of people in that situation to go and have their lobby, their advocacy day in Sacramento. And so we do it once a year. It's called Quest for Democracy. You can send people, you can join, you can attend, you can sponsor. If your organization wants to sponsor, there's a sponsorship opportunity involved for that as well. We do up there. We have a rally. We have what they call press conferences where our state assembly persons and senators come out and actually, you know, they're championing the bill. And then we have a march, and then we go and we have a scheduled meetings with all the staffers and legislatures that are available. It's a great experience. I've been there a few years in a row now, and it's growing, and I think that is very important. So Quest for Democracy is something that you can Google or look on our LSPC website and see and sign up for it.
Are you going to talk with the state's senators and assembly about AB 544?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And we also have the End Slavery Act, which is a really huge one, as you know, it's a push. It's a small, I'm not saying it's an effort going on in Congress, federal Congress, which is very hard because they don't have term limits up there. So you got these people that are unmovable that don't want to support, right? But that doesn't mean we can't do stuff within our own states. And a lot of our state constitutions reflect the federal constitution. And so California, they took out slavery as a punishment for crime, but they left in involuntary servitude as a punishment for crime, which is slavery by another name, basically. And so they're still requiring people to work, right? Using them up and then spitting them out when they're done without any compensation or any medical benefits, Social Security or anything like that. So it's basically they're putting them back in like plantation mode until they're released. And this is making prisons more profitable. And then it could also make public safety issue because criminalization now is profitable because they keep the beds filled. And so, you know, this is something that's important. So if we can make it to where prisoners at least have a choice without being penalized to say, well, I want that job so I can get out my cell or eat better or, you know, but then there might be somebody that doesn't have the same desires, but they can't get out the position without getting penalized so that the other guy can get in the seat, you know, then that's what we're trying to change. We're just trying to make it more fair. We've also surveyed people inside and asked them if this passed, would you guys stop working if you knew you couldn't get penalized? Majority of the people said that they would not stop working, you know, because they see more benefits in it than not, right? And so this is to quell the fears of those that say, well, there's just going to be a massive shutdown and they're going to all demand, we're going to have to pay them all minimum wage and blah, blah, blah. And again, it's the law enforcement that's coming out saying this stuff, you know, because they're worried about their careers and stuff. But this is very important, you know, because it's cyclical. You know, they criminalize our youth at a young age. A percentage of them every 10 years goes to, you know, some form of lockup. And it's just a cycle. And so the only way we can end the cycle, we have to hit it both ways. Education on the bottom and more opportunities and support. And then at the same time, what happens to you when you're inside? There should be real rehabilitation, not just punishment and labor and then spit you back out with $200 and say good luck. You know, we have to address both ends. So I think the End Slavery Act is a means towards that end. And so if the VEOAC can also support ACA 8, that's the name of the bill.
I know you have to be careful about VEOAC and support because we're supposed to, not be necessarily
The members of the VEOAC.
Yes, your organizations,
So members of the
independent of us.
VEOAC, of your own respective individualities and your own organizations, look into ACA 8 as something that maybe you can support.
Thank you, Sarah, for that clarification. Yes, Thrive is nonpartisan.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We will, and we don't have that C4 branch at Thrive to do that kind of advocacy, but VEOAC is still here to help you achieve your goals, right? and your
That's a
organizations.
constitutional amendment, so it's something that would actually go onto the ballot for voters in the future. So, and that's one of the things that we'll talk about when we go into the jails, right? If it's something that's on the ballot that they can vote for, that's directly affecting some people who's gonna go to prison from the county jail, right? This would affect their rights once they're inside, so they would have a reason to register and vote under those circumstances.
I appreciate that. Davina did say that the Coastal Wildfire Day is on May 5th in Hampton Bay. That's another announcement. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Davina, for all the events. This is the last chance to mention any events that are coming up for you all before we close off.
You'll have the calendar. The step-by-step directions.
How
Thank you
to add a Google Calendar.
Yes, we will send that over. So if I may, Diane, I'd love to say thank you all for joining us today in person and virtually for this VEOAC, and we appreciate all the participation. If you have anything that you want to be included in the follow-up, send it to me within the next week or so. And with that, I will close it out.
And the next meeting is June 12th from 10 to 11:30 virtual.
Yes, virtual, so it's easy and accessible. All right, thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.